My roommate and I woke up to a man watching us sleep. For context, I am a sophomore in college in a house full of 4 girls, including myself. We live in the student housing sector and went all out for Halloween decorations, girly ones at that. We live facing towards the main street of the neighborhood, and our backyard has a bunch of trees and bushes. There's a little trail to the back door, but it is in a weird place and is away from the main sidewalk. In terms of our actual house, there is a rather large window on our back door, and we didn't have any window coverings, so it was clear as day to see into our whole bottom floor when looking through it. One night my roommate and I were watching a movie and both fell asleep on the couch. I never sleep on that couch, and neither does she. In fact, we both woke up at separate times this night and just decided to stay on the couch rather than walking the 10 steps to our room. Looking back, I feel that it was just a little intuition we had, or even a guardian angel. We also had fallen asleep with almost every light imaginable on, so anyone peering through any window could see us on the couch clearly and all of our girly decor. It was about 5 in the morning and I get woken up by my roommate shaking me saying, "Be get up. Be get up. There's someone trying to get in." I instantly shoot up, see her terrified face looking at the back door, then instantly turn my head. I see a man standing with a hoodie on, holding a flashlight trying to pick our lock. I can still remember the scratching noise he made with whatever he was using. It definitely wasn't the sound of keys jingling, more of a thin wire against metal sound. As we were both staring at him at this point, frozen in fear, he stopped. All 3 of us were just looking at each other for about a minute when he slowly backed away from the door. My first instinct was to run to the door and make sure it was locked. I have never been so scared walking up to a door, and I never want to feel like that again. We quickly called the police and some friends in the area. The police came about 45 minutes later and just told us to call if anything else happens. They said it could be a drunk college student or a person with bad intentions, but we will never know. I still get a sick feeling thinking about it and hope that it was a drunk mistake, but something tells me it was not. We quickly installed more cameras, door window stoppers, and covers for every part of the house. 3 weeks later we had a break-in, but that's a story for another time. Interested in hearing people's thoughts about this? The man on the train. I've been on this subreddit before, and I'm starting to realize I've unfortunately been a magnet for this stuff my entire life. So this happened a few years ago, and my brain is still fuzzy because honestly I've kind of blocked this out from my memory. My older sister and myself went to Washington, D.C. one year, and I was super excited because I'd never been before. We started the trip with a private tour of the Capitol building, where one of her friends worked at the time. I was honestly super stoked. Even though I had already become disenchanted with politics at that age, it was still really cool to be in the building and learning about the history of the country. After that, we went to the Smithsonian and just genuinely had a lot of fun educating each other in the different subject we were always into. I was always more math and science oriented, and she was English and history. At the end of one of the days, we were headed to the metro station to get a train back to our hotel. Now, I'd been on train platforms like this before, having visited my uncle in NYC a couple of times, and since then been stationed in Chicago with their metro system. So I have a pretty good understanding of how trains and stops work. My sister said she needed to go to the bathroom and to wait for her before I got in the train, and I told her okay before making my way to the kiosk to reload my card. While I was at the kiosk, I got this feeling that someone was looking at me. That overwhelming feeling of just being watched, and it was uncomfortable. I turned my head a little, and there, standing in the corner, was what I can only assume to be a homeless man based off his appearance, staring right at me with huge eyes. At first, I thought nothing of it, as we had people like this back home in Florida, too, and went back to what I was doing. I pulled out my phone and started playing a game or something while I waited. Before long, my sister came back and we got on our train. We talked for a bit about what time we were getting up the next morning to catch our flight back, since it was later in the day around noon. When she started to open her mouth, I froze. Standing in the back of the train car, staring at both of us, was the same man I'd seen earlier. I'll never forget his outfit. A dirty gray hoodie, matted brown hair, a face that looked like he suffered from heavy substance abuse, dingy skin, ragged blue jeans, and shoes with holes in them. I leaned in, not breaking eye contact, and said, "That guy was staring at me earlier, and now he's still watching us on the train." She looked at him and whispered, "If he gets off when we do, we'll make a dead sprint to the hotel." Honestly, I don't know why we didn't call the police, but knowing where our hotel was, on the end of town where things started to get sketchier, I don't think it would have made much difference for response time. The train stopped at our station and we got off. I didn't see the man follow us, so I thought we were fine. It was still about a 5-block walk to the hotel, and in a really sketchy part of town. It's not that we were cheapskates, it's just all we could afford in all honesty. As we walked, we continued our previous conversation, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I turned around and saw the man, hidden behind a brick wall, peeking out like Kilroy. I froze. My sister turned around and saw him too. When he realized he'd been busted, he stood straight up and gave a big, cracked grin, and just kept staring. I wanted to challenge him, being 6 feet 3 inches and 215 pounds at the time, and yell, "What the frick do you want?" But I remembered my previous encounter with someone following me, and just froze. Barely squeaking out, "What the?" It was about this time the man started walking towards us. I wasn't frozen anymore. We both started a dead sprint toward the hotel. As terrifying as the situation was already, what happened next still makes every hair on my body stand straight up. The man screamed absolute nonsense loudly before letting out a Joker-esque cackle, chasing after us. I was lagging behind my sister a little so she could get to safety before me. She was smaller than me, and I knew, if I needed to, I could maybe fight this guy. I grabbed my wallet from my pocket and pulled out the room key, since it was one of those hotels where you needed to have a key to access the building. Once we were inside, I realized just how far away the guy was from me. I played football in high school, and I was still pretty fast, and I had to have had about 10 or 15 yards between us, even if I was running slower. We didn't say anything. We just went upstairs to our room and made sure it was locked in every way possible. We left super early and took an Uber to the airport. I don't know what it is with people chasing after me, and I still don't know what that dude wanted, but I really don't want to find out. Man living in house unknown. Short but considerably creepy one. For context, I was about 10 or 11 when this happened. I live fairly close to a mental health facility for middle-aged to elderly patients who require psychiatric care. You can see it from one of my friend's gardens. One day, me and all my friends are outside playing, chilling, hanging out, the usual. One of the workers from said facility approaches us and asks if we've seen X person with Y and Z clothing and characteristics. Nope. Thinking nothing of it, we kick about as normal. A couple of days pass and one of my friends, who's been staying out late and having sleepovers with friends, tells us that things have went missing from his house, specifically his bedroom. We're all of the opinion he's being silly and trying to get a laugh out of us, either that or his mom has moved them. Again, forget about it. We're all out the next day, friend nowhere to be seen. There's a police car outside his house and again, a bit of commotion and hassle in the immediate area. Confused and curious kids, we check it out. My friend appears and tells us the most spine-chilling story. That morning, he's walking upstairs in his home and from his POV you can see into his room and specifically under his bed. To his horror, there's a whole grown adult hiding under his bed. Asleep. Long story short, it's the missing patient and he'd been in the house for the last 2 days. Whilst the man posed no significant danger and didn't have any malicious intent, this still creeps me out to this day. Normally I wouldn't have believed him, but his mom confirmed it and it was the talk of the neighborhood for a while. Safe to say I never stayed over at his again or even stepped foot inside his house.